High above the tallest mountains, higher than people can see, hidden inside the fluffy white clouds, there was a magical place. This was the Cloud Palace. The Cloud Palace was a quiet and enchanting place where everything was made of ice and sparkles, and the walls shone like diamonds. Here lived the most important helpers of the winter season, the tiny water droplets. Among these droplets was a little one named Crystal. Crystal was curious and excited, but also a little bit worried. Like her friends, Crystal was waiting for the day of the Great Fall. This was the day they would stop being water droplets, turn into magnificent snowflakes, and be sent down to Earth as a gift. That morning, there was a great bustle in the Cloud Palace. The manager of the palace, Lady Winter, entered the hall with her long silver hair and ice blue dress. Her voice was as soft as a whispering wind. "Good morning, my little droplets," said Lady Winter. "Today is the big day. Down on Earth, the weather has turned very cold. Children are pressing their noses against the windows, waiting for you. Are you ready?" All the droplets shouted, "Yes." A very confident droplet named Frost stepped forward. "I am ready, Lady Winter. When I go down, I'm going to be a perfect hexagon. I will have straight edges and pointy tips. I will look perfect, just like in the books." Crystal sighed. She thought to herself, "I wonder if I can be as perfect as Frost." She felt so small and shapeless. She was just a tiny, frozen ball. Lady Winter smiled. "Remember, my little ones," she said. "It is not my magic that makes you a snowflake. What makes you a snowflake is your journey. You will take shape depending on how the wind hugs you and how the cold tickles you. Let yourself go with the wind." And then, the massive doors of the Cloud Palace opened. Kriak! Freezing but refreshing air filled the room. "Off you go. Let the journey begin." Thousands of tiny droplets jumped joyfully into the open sky. Crystal closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let herself go. Whoosh! Crystal began to float in the sky. At first, she was just a tiny dot of ice. But the air was so cold that Crystal started to shiver. "Bia! It's so cold," shouted Crystal. Just then, the north wind arrived. The north wind was strong and playful. "Hello, little Crystal," boomed the wind. "Shall we dance?" The north wind grabbed Crystal and started spinning her around. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Crystal was spinning so fast that she felt dizzy. But during this spin, a miracle happened. The cold air stuck to Crystal's body, and tiny, icy arms started to grow outwards. She turned right, and a long crystal arm grew on her right side. She turned left, and a pattern as delicate as lace formed on her left side. Crystal said in amazement, "Hey! Look at my arms. I'm growing." But when she looked down, she saw her friend Frost. Frost was in a very calm breeze, floating down perfectly straight and smooth. Crystal got worried. "Oh dear. The wind spun me around too much. Are my arms a bit wonky? One side is longer, and one side is fancier. I wish I could float down calmly like Frost." The journey continued. As Crystal floated down, she suddenly had to pass through a grey, grumpy storm cloud. It was crowded inside the cloud, and there was a bit of pushing and shoving. Another snowflake, named Glitter, accidentally bumped into Crystal. Crash! Sorry, said Glitter. This collision changed the shape of a tiny piece of ice on the tip of Crystal's arm. Now, there was a tiny chip, a little dent on her tip. Crystal was sad. Brilliant, she thought. First the wind made me wonky, and now I have a dent. I'm going to be the weirdest snowflake in the world. Nobody will like me. Just as she was leaving the cloud, a beam of silver light sent by the moon hit Crystal. Pling! This light made the little chip from the crash shine brightly. That little thing she thought was a mistake had turned into a corner that sparkled like a diamond, reflecting the light beautifully. Crystal noticed her sparkle, but she was still worried about her strange shape. She looked down. The earth was getting closer. Trees, houses, and street lamps were starting to appear. As she got closer to the ground, the air got a little warmer, then cold again. These sudden changes created patterns on Crystal's tips that looked like tiny feathers. It was as if she was wearing a dress made of lace. Crystal looked at her friends floating beside her. Her friend Frost had indeed become a perfect hexagon. Straight, simple, and sharp. Her other friend, Snowy, had become a chubby and fluffy shape. Another one, Star, had arms as thin as needles. But Crystal was a mixture. One arm was curly because of the north wind, the other tip was forked because she bumped into Glitter, and her body was patterned because of the temperature changes. I am so different, said Crystal sadly. I don't look like any of them. I am a mess. Just then, an old and wise snowflake floating past, Grandpa Flake, heard Crystal mumbling. A mess, laughed Grandpa Flake. My dear, you are a work of art. Crystal was surprised. But Grandpa, look. Frost is so neat. But I am wonky and bumpy. Grandpa Flake floated closer to her on the breeze. Listen to me closely, Crystal. If the north wind hadn't spun you, you wouldn't have those lovely curls. If you hadn't crashed in the storm, you wouldn't have that sparkling corner. If the cold hadn't frozen you, you wouldn't have those lace patterns. Your shape is your story. Everything that happened to you from the sky to here is written on you. Crystal looked at her arms again. It was true. On her right arm was the song of the wind, and on her left arm was the memory of the storm. She wasn't just a piece of ice. She was an adventure from the sky. So, said Crystal, is it good not to look the same? Of course, said Grandpa Flake. Billions of snowflakes are falling right now. And none of them, absolutely none of them, has traveled the exact same path as you. That is why you are the only one in the universe. You are unique. The icy worry inside Crystal melted away, replaced by a warm feeling of pride. She was ready to land now. The ground was very close. Down below, there was a little girl running in the garden, wearing a red coat and a blue woolly hat. Her name was Emily. Emily had her head tilted up to the sky and her arms open wide. It's snowy, she shouted happily. Crystal glided with one last push from the wind, floated down, and made a soft landing. Plop. Do you know where she landed? Right on Emily's dark blue woolly mitten. Emily noticed this new guest landing on her mitten. She brought her eyes closer. Crystal was shining like a jewel on the dark blue wall. Emily shouted, "Mum! Dad! Look at this!" Her mum leaned down. "What is it, darling?" "Look at this snowflake, Mum," said Emily with admiration. "It's so different. It's curly here, and sparkling there. It looks like a starflower. It doesn't look like the others at all." Crystal felt Emily's warm breath, but she didn't melt. Because those beautiful words froze her with happiness. "Did you hear that?" she whispered to the wind. "She said I'm special. She called me a starflower." Her perfectly shaped friend, Frost, landed next to her. Frost said, "Wow, Crystal. The humans loved your patterns. I wish I had danced with the wind a bit more. You look so interesting." Crystal smiled, shining brightly, just how snowflakes smile. She understood now. She didn't have to be perfect. Being herself was enough. The wind, the storm, the bumps, they were all parts that made her who she was. That night, Crystal and billions of her friends covered the garden like a white, fluffy blanket. They were all different from each other. One like a triangle, one like a star, one like a plate. But when they came together, they created the most beautiful scene in the world, a winter tale. And from that day on, whenever it snowed, children ran to the windows to try and catch those unique snowflakes. Because they knew that every single one they caught was a different story told to them from the sky. The end.